Oh my god, dude, it's 365 divided by a number. When you change that number, the angle changes. Not following.
We didn't quite
I had a
have
good time
to
with
go
him.
with
He's
the
a really
microphones
good
on.
No, he's a really good guy, but...
Thank you, Allison. I'm sorry, I thought we just
Thank
were
you.
sharing.
Well, it's not the best for that.
Live.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Call the meeting to order of the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation for April 24th. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Public comment is for non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public making comment? Seeing none, moving on to item B, which is director's comments and updates. Reminder, this is kind of liaison reports from your towns, anything that Board of Directors thinks that the entire board needs to know that is of importance. Do we have any director's comments? Seeing none. Item C is agenda adjustments. Did we want to add something to it?
Yes, I would propose that we add an agenda item to vote on cutting off the,
Advertising
to stop accepting new applications
for director.
Manager
for
search.
the manager's position.
Is there a specific place in the agenda, like next?
I would say next would be the best place, just so we don't forget.
Great, so the proposal is to have a new item D, and that would be to vote to cut off receiving or accepting applications for the manager's search. Is there a motion?
I move to terminate application solicitation for the Midcoast Solid Waste Manager search.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Great, thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on, item D, review and approval of the March 27th, 2019 meeting minutes. Are there adjustments, alterations?
Should have actually voted to, first to amend the agenda, to add it, and then we should have done a second vote on the actual issue, if you wanted to be a stickler for it. I don't know if we do, but
We should in the future.
we'll just move on.
We should in the future.
Who's going to sue us?
Duly noted. If anyone has any issues with that, you can call me. Thank you.
Shoot you.
I'm cool with that, I shoot back.
Okay, on the minutes.
Yes, yes.
So my understanding on page 1 of the minutes is that Wendy abstained. So I think that should be where it says motion passed 6-1-0, it should be 6-0-1, correct? Bob?
Yeah, the first
She was,
page?
she was absent.
No, she abstained because she
Yeah.
was, she was at this meeting.
Yes.
But she abstained from the prior minutes.
It's saying that she,
She
She
didn't vote.
she was-
Because she was absent at the prior meeting.
Correct, correct.
See how slow I
correct.
am?
That's okay.
Yeah.
So that should be a 6-0-1, not 6-1-0.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
And then, I think I had one other, the other thing was on page 3, on the manager search. I think it doesn't completely accurately describe what we agreed that the process would be. It says that, sort of in,
Which one?
manager search, G.
Yep.
Says the personnel committee representative for each of the 2 employee representatives will form an interview panel, will screen the resumes and conduct initial interviews prior, blah, blah, blah. Conduct initial interviews prior to any candidate being put forward to the board. It was agreed that video interviews would be necessary for both initial and second interviews. And this whole concept that it was agreed that several people would be brought to the board, and the board would then conduct the final interviews. That's not reflected in here, and that was a major determination that we made.
Percentage? So we're using a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll bring that
Well,
up.
after process, should be interviewed by the board.
Yeah, something like that. To tell you the truth, I didn't have the exact wording in there.
I'll fix that.
Agree that video interviews would be necessary for both initial and second interviews. In some cases, face-to-face meetings not possible. Yeah, but the whole concept was, it makes it sound, the whole concept that the board wants to interview more than one, wants to interview
Okay.
the fun. You can just stick a sentence in that says the board agreed that they
Final.
wanted to interview, so, the
Final
final
candidate.
candidate minutes.
Right, it does say
Decision isn't being deferred to the
provided,
committee.
and that's what he did
Okay.
suggest. is that
Yes, right,
They don't know what he suggested.
right. I just wanted to add that sentence to, because we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah,
It was an empty statement.
Maybe.
okay.
Any other alterations to the minutes?
Sorry, I had another one. On page 4, I think, at the bottom, it has the K, the last couple of lines. It says Bob motions that, blah, but I don't think there was a second.
Which one are you talking about?
K, at the bottom, on page 4, there's no second in there.
Behold.
Wow,
And
good
This is a
job.
little nit that I need to bring up with the Rockport Select Board too, and we do it here, and I'm just gonna say it because it's been bothering me for months. And that is, we really shouldn't say that somebody motioned, it's somebody moved.
Correct.
The proper term is moved. And it just bothers the heck out of me, and it has been for a year, and so Rick, don't let me forget to bring it up to the, and sometimes when people say it, they say, I motion to,
Yep.
and it's not right, I move. Sorry, it's just
Or I
the
pose a question.
technical.
Yeah, I don't even like, I make a motion that,
Yeah.
You can pose the
yeah.
question. can't you?
Okay,
I agree.
and I think that was all I had.
Ready?
Anything else from anyone else?
Sure.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Movement and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I will have to abstain respectfully.
That works for me. And that would be recorded as a
601.
one.
Whatever it is.
Doesn't add.
All right, so my apologies, I should have caught under agenda adjustments that we have Mr. Bolstrich with us, and so that he does not have to slog through scrap dogs and everything else, can we change item J to be our next item? Are there any great objections to that? Do you want us to vote on this?
You don't know, you don't have, you can rearrange an agenda, just
Yeah.
adding an agenda requires Alice's.
Oh, gotcha, thank you. Okay, hearing no objections, we will move on to the previously named item J.
All right.
Formerly
I
known as
looked,
Jay.
That's reflected in the minutes.
I had a look at what it would take to automate the landfill leachate pump. Right now, it's, somebody has to go up, put a ladder up on the standpipe,
Well, we
put a,
covered the ladder.
and actually put a sensor down that squawks when he hits water, and he measures that and figures out whether or not the landfill leachate is going up or down in the landfill. So I looked at how we could automate that, so that whole process doesn't have to happen.
Great idea.
You think?
And fortunately, you know, when they put that well in, they did make provisions, to put a level indicator in there and automate it. However, there was no conduit run from the level indicator over to the controller, which is in a box about roughly 100 feet away. So I looked at, well, do we want to run a conduit there? But looking at it and the cost of doing that, I figured it'd be less expensive to go ahead and put a solar panel in with a battery and with a couple of radio transmitters and receivers.
Right on top of the B4?
Yes, yeah, and then there'll be another receiver on the pole where the air
box.
controller is. Yeah,
Great.
yeah, and that'll make it less complicated and less expensive. So we had that, we had to put in a programmable logic controller that'll look at that level, and it'll say, okay, the level's going up or down, and it'll pace the pump depending on that level and what the set point is that we put in. So you need that piece of equipment. Transducer, that's the level transducer, you'll need one of those as well. And then there's one other black box that is essentially the interface between the operator and the PLC. So it has a little screen on it, and the operator can make changes on that screen and to tell the PLC what to do. So putting that all together, I got a quote from a company that we've used previously quite a few times. They do this for a living. And they gave me a quote of $7,413.70 for both all the equipment and also installation. The only thing that I could think of that we might want to add to that quote is putting an indicator light on the control panel. So if we lose a signal from the transducer, the level transducer, that light would come on.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody walking by would see that and know that we've lost that
Got a
transmission.
problem.
So that would be another $100, that'd bring you up to $7,513.70 for that piece of equipment.
I have a couple questions, if people don't mind. So all this makes sense to me. I just want to try to put my arms around capabilities. What do we do with it? What do we get from it? So the ability to alter, so I'll sketch out a scenario. From a desk inside Beth's office, would an individual be able to alter the flow rate of the pump, be able to see what the water level is at, and say, I want to increase or decrease this by manually? Would they also be able to say, we would prefer that there's a certain outcome or output that we want to see from our pump, and then it automated does it itself? What exactly does it do? I mean, I'm understanding all the stuff and I understand the system. You know, where's the human? Are they at the computer?
Everything you said
Can you move the microphone a little closer to Dave?
This equipment would be capable of doing that. The only thing that it wouldn't do is be able to do that at Beth's desk. Yeah, you'd have to go into the control panel, and
Which would
that's
be
where that
over by
interface is.
the box, the pole box?
Right, exactly.
Remember, the advantage of trying to do this is, well, twofold. One, you don't need people interfering.
Yep.
But the biggest thing is, we're spending about $120,000 a year.
Yep.
I think.
That'd be a really bad year.
Yeah, that's, well, it was 100,000 last year. I saw. But anyway,
Yeah, it varies quite a bit from year to
Well,
year.
right.
Yeah.
It was 80,000 one year, and it was 130.
But then we put the dam in and so forth. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if this thing does what it should, it's going to not have to revisiting the speed of a pump every so many days when somebody has the opportunity to go out there manually, take a look, as we're doing now. You should be able to absolutely minimize the flow to the Camden wastewater treatment plant, and that should be saving us money.
So we basically figure out what we want to see for an optimal flow,
An optimal level.
Optimal
an
level.
optimal level.
Level.
And then it will then pump quicker or slower depending on what the level is telling
You can
it.
shut off.
Yeah, that is
Or even
correct.
shut off.
Yeah, yeah.
My only question is the pump fast enough that it keeps up with a big rainstorm? It's like the benefit of having, Jim just had a really good understanding of kind of what needed to happen. He would watch the weather, be paying attention, and could say, there's a massive storm, and he could say, oh, it's coming up fast, or it's coming up slow.
You'll be able to
If-
see that level.
And it's powerful enough that we don't have to anticipate too much in terms of, we don't have to draw the quarry down a little bit more before there's a big rainstorm coming. Like with the lake, we're like, oh, big storm coming, let's draw it down a little bit.
Yeah,
At a time.
I'd have to look at that, yeah.
We have a water report right now that's saying that sometimes we're actually been a little bit too low, say, in the summer months or early fall. Today, we were up 3 feet, so we turned up the pump, and through a manual check. But, so I'm not quite following.
There's no such thing as too low.
Yeah, there is.
Well, it's better to separate.
I mean, the
but
point is to
if
not
The pump, as I saw,
believe
it was
the
right
load.
about
When it gets too low,
35%.
you also get into a different concentration of leachate, so they don't, they like it, to be, it's what the DEP feedback was.
Yeah, it should be designed to be able to pick up and catch up.
Right, they like it to be at a certain rate if they can.
Rick?
Dave, with this the newer technology, maybe, is it possible that we'll be able to get, like, reports of information of how the pump is operating over time, so we can see, analyze it and say, okay, here's what's happening, and compare it and make, so we can see if we have a problem someplace, or there's a problem appearing or not appearing, or, I mean,
Get all that
with this
now,
new
but-
technology, will it report out that stuff?
Yeah, you could actually put some graphics on the screen.
Right.
To look at. But, right now, we have these in our pump stations, and periodically we go and we download the data.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be an add-on after the fact, but once you have the system built, you add on a piece that if we decided that's what we wanted to keep track of, you could add that on in the future. I'm assuming.
I think that capability will be included, but I'm going to make a note just to
Yeah.
figure that out.
I mean, I would think that's the way you operate your pumps for, it's,
Yeah, exactly the same
so you
pieces
can
of
monitor,
equipment.
and you'll see, oh, we've got a problem here, unless you're out there checking it all the time, if it's running smooth, you don't know that all of a sudden it's pumping a lot more water, and, we may have a problem that it might be months before we see it.
No, we know that in the wastewater treatment plant, though. We know, we
Yeah,
keep
when-
track of how much water is
Goes
coming.
through?
Yeah, this is at our pump stations.
Right.
Individual pump
Right,
stations. we
okay,
can
so
do
you
this.
get that then, yeah.
We know every day what happens
At the
there.
treatment plant itself.
I forgot
yeah.
about that, that's right.
Yeah.
So we're still monitoring it daily, or like, how often do we
No,
check
you
the
wouldn't,
panel?
you wouldn't have to. It should,
It'll
maybe
pick it
once,
up and
maybe
kick it
once a
down.
week, look at it,
might wanna-
glance over there, make sure that light isn't on, that type of thing.
And there is a little bit of a learning curve to Alice's point. When I saw the VFD, variable frequency drive on the pump, it was only running about 33% of capacity. It says capacity available, but you still should, during a very rainy event, take a look at that, what you talked about, Rick, the flow, and make sure we're not having a problem. You'll see it. I doubt you will, given the size of that pump, and from the limited data I've seen, that was only what Dave gave me for flow. It's not that high.
So will that tell us what the level is all the time? So,
Yes, yeah, you'll get constant.
so we'll know if we set it to be 90 and it's, it'll still tell us
Is the
that
magic
it's
number.
Whatever you want.
higher. We'll be able to see if it's not, somehow it's not keeping up with what, even though the pump's on at full speed, the levels at, 4 feet above what it's supposed to be.
And rather than taking 10 or 15 minutes to see what the level is,
Right.
you'll do it in a minute.
Great,
what it takes to
this all
open up
sounds
the-
great to me.
I mean, in downstream, you could always add, if we saw a buck, those alarm it too, if we wanted to, but I wouldn't add that now.
No,
At first, it's gonna take a little bit more time just to get used to it and check it and feel good about it. So it'll take a few minutes every other day, maybe.
Yeah.
Just to check it, but after that, we'll do it probably once a month.
Right.
Where does this come out of in our budget?
So that was the only, so what I was gonna, unless board members had significant reservations about the system, what I was basically gonna propose was if people think this is a good idea, let's not take action on it, but get a sense of the board that this is something you would like to see. And then it'll fall on likely the executive committee and Beth to see if we can, at a future meeting, maybe next meeting, bring to you all, we're going to take it from, because it's not in,
Why are you so
well, first of all,
small? Take it from reserve.
the finance committee would do that, but
That's true, good point.
you would approve it, but you want to find the money too? That's cool.
They can.
Typically, you just
why can't we
approve.
just, we could decide this tonight.
You have reserves.
Let's not take more time than we have to.
was
This
an
is a
attempt
pretty
to
big
be
deal. This
thoughtful.
causes us problems over there. we've got like one person, a couple people trained now tenuously, like
She's talking about manpower problems, and this is gonna alleviate manpower problems.
immediately.
Yeah, the ladder's gone.
How do you get up there now?
But here's the point I want to make. The casing, we just added
Front-end
10
loader?
feet to it. Eventually, that particular well and casing will be under 40 feet of trash all the way around that well. So we're building up this process to keep it protected and ready to be used. But, so I have, that question, like, I guess that to me is a plus for having it go automated. And I believe we will be adding on to this well casing as we go, so we have to make plans for that. And making plans for the entire well is a question. We do not have maintenance reserves. We don't have a plan for it. If the pump dies, about a year ago, we thought the pump did die. It turned out to be, it just needed to be, it needed to be petted or something, I don't know, but.
We have an
so
equipment reserve, though, so.
We do have equipment reserve, but there's also, this is kind of a little bit of a different area where, like I said, it's going to be kind of in the middle of our landfill. It is a major factor for when we cover, I think you remember Lou talking about the water going down. So I just would like to throw out that in the process of approving this new way of doing it, that we actually take a look at the whole process of that well and make sure there's a plan for it outside of just making it automated, but to make sure that we know what needs to be done with that as we go through this landfill
You
transition.
could do this as a parallel effort. but it
Yeah,
wouldn't-
we're always going to have to pump, so that's not going away.
It's a big piece.
And the pump is old, by the way. It is.
It's about, I think it was, we decided 2006.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's about
then we have that other one that we replaced before it was quite necessary. But this
Very
definitely has to
powerful,
happen.
too.
This was a very stressful thing when we lost the manager, and Owen's been out there figuring it out. I've been out there, and it's like we're all taking notes and like videoing. I think we should move forward on this.
I
If
have
any-
a video.
And I would-
So we just need to put that all down in a manual and move forward and make it real. We did a lot of
Absolutely.
digging.
As I was saying, your pension, that it would reduce the cost that Midco Solid Waste will pay to Camden.
Oh, so we'll spend it out of the leachate money.
No, because it was being quite well managed before, so it will save us money from maybe our, like that, in the interim when we don't have somebody monitoring it, but Jim was doing a good job saving us money with that before, but it protects us from being dependent on one person. This is necessary, I think.
And it
I don't know
won't
why
shut
we would.
off.
Sorry?
We won't ever shut it off.
Well, it might shut itself
Well,
off.
yeah, if
but-
it reaches a level and it's holding that
Oh,
level,
the pump.
then the pump will automatically will shut
Yeah,
off.
right now, when you have the pump set and running, if the level goes below, it's still running unless somebody goes over and catches it.
Right, that's the big danger of,
Yeah, we used
for
to shut
cost.
it off a lot more.
It's like going down to your basement 5,000 times with your sump pump rather than having an automated.
I just wanted to throw out
System.
that the whole little system needs some attention.
Good point, yeah.
So, as you say, we have an equipment reserve, but remember there were a couple of other, at our last finance committee meeting, there were a couple of items that we went ahead and we made, so
We overspent the line, and then we-
overspent the line, so, and we were saying that at the end of the year, if we were under budget in some other areas, great, and then the board would make a decision. If we weren't, we'd take it out of reserves. Is that also equipment reserves?
Yes, that is what it would ultimately come out of if, but we don't have I don't think in this case we have a line that we could just overspend.
Right, so all I'm saying is, we already know that we might be taking some amount of money out of the equipment reserve for those items that we
Right.
previously approved at the end of the fiscal year, right? And then if we take this out of equipment reserve, do we have enough equipment reserve?
$290,000 or something.
That's right.
We have a lot.
That's such a huge amount, I was looking obviously at the wrong thing.
This is noisy.
Okay, so it's not, okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't too, using the equipment reserve. Right, okay.
Yeah, I think that this, I mean, and the only thing that would slow me down here is if we decided we needed to put this out to bid or something. I don't know, I think, Dave, you could probably provide a recommendation on whether this is the kind of thing it would make sense to shop around, or whether we should just move.
I'm looking at this quote and each individual component, and I don't think you're going to do any better than this.
Is it a single source provider kind of thing? There aren't that many people that provide this kind of thing.
You know, this is a pretty small project, and it's hard to get people's attention for something like this, yeah.
I mean, I think that there's something to be lost by waiting here, that with all the personnel issues that we, instabilities, and that it would be best to just authorize tonight that we spend up to
75-13.
7513 and get it done.
I have no problem with that. I was just trying to be cautious, negative Nancy on,
We don't have any
I have no problem with
policy on
authorizing
having
that
to bid
tonight, though.
stuff over a certain amount or nothing.
No, anything over $5,000 is supposed to be reviewed by the Finance Committee,
Oh,
but,
So done.
so it's, that's just to avoid the board having to meet every time, but, and now would there be a way to, it seems like, Dave, you're going to end up being the most knowledgeable liaison.
I was planning to go over and work with them, and, yeah.
And now, as a Town of Camden employee, are we just donating Dave's time, or, I mean, I'm fine with that, because you're on,
You're not talking a lot of hours.
What's
You're
that?
talking a lot of hours.
No,
I mean-
no, it's not going to take very long,
Yeah.
no.
And we would
Well,
clearly.
it's a wastewater treatment plant
You would clearly
thing
recommend that
also.
some Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation employees shadow you through this process so that we don't have to call you every time we want someone to interface with this device. So what you're talking about for a time commitment is primarily a front-loaded, where you're just trying to help put the system together and make sure people understand the system, and then you get to go do your job and not worry about us anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be there during the installation, and then I can follow up with whatever employees want to be trained on this.
And then
So they
you
can
yeah.
see, what, they'll be able to look and get that data and understand what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, which won't take any time to speak of, so.
Camden, all
Okay.
right with that?
I mean, it's connected to the duties of the wastewater treatment plant, too, I guess. It's kind of, as long as it's not a huge burden
If we
for
had,
you.
if we
No, it
had the
won't take
local
much time.
expert in Rockport, I'd be saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we should be, it's just Camden has the local expert in this, that's his job, is monitoring flows. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we had the plant in Rockport, I'd be saying,
So if someone was feeling up to it, I would await a motion. We can always discuss more after a motion in a second. Does someone want to take a stab at a motion?
I move that we allocate up to, is 751370 going to do it, Dave, or should we be safe and say up to 77?
That would be the safe thing to do. I don't anticipate it, but
I move that we allocate up to $7,700 from the Equipment Reserve Fund to pay for the proposal, to pay for the, what do we call it? The installation of a new level transmitter for the landfill leachate pump system.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a question on maintenance down the road, solar panels, how long that kind of stuff lasts.
yeah, typically, I would anticipate you'd have to change out the batteries probably every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
They are AGM batteries. They're better than lead acid, so they might last longer than that.
Glass mat batteries?
What's the proper disposal system for those batteries? Or,
The glass mat, just like those, not easy.
so it's like a household hazardous waste day kind of event? How expensive are they to replace? That's not the bulk of the cost, is it?
System itself.
Trying to think that size battery,
How big is it?
35 amp hours, I think. They're small. I mean, they're probably
$50.
$50 a
Oh,
piece would
okay,
be.
no,
yeah.
it's not like half the cost of this or something.
No,
It's
much-
one part of that number. isn't it?
Exactly, and you think about what
It
I don't know what a
is
solar
one
panel
portion-
costs.
One portion of the $552 Remote Pro Solar power system. One part of that
Okay.
is the battery.
Yeah, maybe, maybe $150.
Right, okay.
Yeah, maybe not that much. No, you're probably right.
Good question, though. And do you want to follow that line anymore?
So I was thinking if it was a
Yeah,
$1,000 figure.
the electronic components, if they're gonna die under warranty. They last for decades.
Yeah.
And what I think is a stupid question, considering it's kind of a bolt-on thingy, if we go and we bolt another 30 feet onto that well casing, we can unbolt this device, put 30 feet on, likely have to recalibrate it for the additional height, but then we can bolt the same device back onto the top of our now 30 feet taller pipe.
Just as long as we don't run out of wire. Okay. Level indicator.
So we'll put a big old pigtail on there or something?
I would think you'd be able to splice those. That's what I'm thinking too, because
Yeah, because we got a good distance before you hit water, so you could splice.
you're gonna have the same issue with the pump,
Yeah.
because I don't know what they have for,
Pump doesn't go through the top.
It'll come right, it'll come out through the water.
Okay. Doesn't currently, though. All right, any further questions or discussion, I mean? All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
much, we really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Take care now.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, neighbor.
All right.
And actually, this is a little bit not in Camden's interest, because we benefit in Camden when Midco Solid Waste just keeps pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. So we're actually acting against our own town interest in the interest of everybody.
And thank you for moving him up.
Yes. Yeah.
Noticed that, and I thought, oh, boy, it's too bad.
All right, moving on to item E, which is Waste Watch Committee Report. Text massage from Josh Garrettson. I do that. It's my things. It's not text message, it's text massage.
Bad term in the country right
I was
now.
gonna say.
Really?
Yeah.
It's from Josh.
But Owen,
Hi, Owen. I won't be attending tonight's Midcoast Solid Waste Board meeting tonight, but I wanted to share with you that Lincolnville collected 640 pounds of trash off our roads this past weekend during the roadside cleanup, including an entire tailgate from a truck. So that
that's a scrap metal item, that's good for us.
that appears to be the Waste Watch Committee report.
Okay.
Camden's roadside cleanup was rescheduled due to rain. It is now happening on the 3rd and 4th of May. And Rockport's is this weekend.
And again, just because we're talking about it, please just know that if you want to engage in a program like this, we are more than happy to. 640 pounds seems low to me. I feel like we're pulling over 1,000, like 15.
We're pulling a ton, I think.
Yeah,
They got rain, so
Yeah,
probably a
makes
low number of
sense. Yeah.
volunteers, and
but you're typically pulling a lot off. We're all taking it the same place, we're helping out, and, we'd be happy to take Hope's roadside trash and help facilitate that.
I think there are a couple people in Hope that were, like, doing it a little bit here and there anyway, so. There's been talk of them.
Right. We're not canceling ours because of rain in Rockport.
We're not made of sugar.
I wouldn't think so. Marcy, I'm sure, has a plan, and I doubt it's to cancel
Called
anything.
umbrellas.
They stopped us and texted us, and got me all kinds of trouble.
Well, that happened.
We-
Marcy, she's like
I
the,
thought you knew,
no,
but-
I can't remember what she
You
said.
made arrangements for the trucks to
Oh,
pick the
okay,
stuff up.
yeah. But I know I've moved our day, that we usually do ours on Friday, and we're doing ours tomorrow, just because we are made of sugar in the town office, so.
Yeah, I don't, Marcy, I'm sure has a plan.
Yeah.
Great,
Yep.
my wife Always has.
She's amazing. She's the one that's made all this happen. She works so hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other discussion on roadside cleanup waste watch items?
Waste Watch on May 8th.
Oh, right, yeah.
Sam Swecker's middle school class is going to come and visit the facility and take a tour and talk about plastic and other recyclables and other things at the facility. Josh is helping Davis with that, so through Waste Watch, we put out, asked him to help us, and he said he would. So trying to keep that collaboration going.
And then, do you want to, we hosted a lunch for volunteers at the swap shop and had all the volunteers get together and talk about where the building got moved a little bit, and that required a fair amount of discussion. Did a cleanup of the loading dock, and it was a great group of people. They did a bunch of trimming and cleaning. Owen and I were there also, and we cleaned out this was Owen's good suggestion, noticing that what's it called again? The detention pond.
Detention, whatever.
There's so much trash just around the facility, and of course there is, but it's been spread all over the place, and so we're going to try to just little by little get the whole thing cleaned up, especially as the quarry level continues to rise. That's causing more and more stuff just that's been right on the banks. It's causing it to fall in. There's a whole building, a small little shed building, ice fishing shack type of thing, that is falling in there. A lot of it I think we can just do by board members showing up and just working on it. In the quarry area is not a place that we'd want to recruit volunteers from the public, but necessarily. But Owen and I have talked for years about taking it into our own hands, and maybe you want to follow up.
Yeah, so one thing, over the course of discussions about the trash at the dump, I mean, it is the dump, people bring stuff there, but it blows around them, then we don't police it. There appears to be some potential for employees to assist in that cleaning up. However, my assessment is we are not at a place to where handing this debris cleanup to the employees is a smart idea. There's too much. Now, if we, as the board of directors, did a day where we all came in with some good clothes on, helped police up the area, then it might be possible that the employee base could try to maintain some of the trouble areas where trash tends to collect, but it doesn't appear as though with the amount that there is in various places around the whole facility, it would be reasonable to ask the employees to go and police all that up. So Alice and I, in all of our infinite young people wisdom, thought it would be a good bonding event for the board that we all went and did some trash cleanup. And one, it beautifies the area, but two, it gets you there at the facility a little bit more. When you're in the detention pond, you really start to understand what the detention pond does. You go
notice
around,
things and
you start noticing things that you didn't notice before. It's really beneficial to spend more time actually at the facility itself. If that is something that people have some slight interest in, then we will probably try to see if we can get some of you at some point in time when the public's not there, or maybe.
You see,
Yeah,
this is
likely
the
when the
detention pond
public's-
here. It's a little
Nice
hard to
weather.
tell, but luckily, I was actually able to find this bin here for collection was actually in the detention pond itself, which worked perfectly to then deposit trash
Cycling
into.
the trash out of the detention pond.
But this is Owen, and it's a great event for kids, too. You can see he's got Cora there. But this is the clean detention pond. And let's see, at the beginning, you can see, there's a lot of stuff. Like, it was like this everywhere. So, by just focusing, it was kind of fun.
I do have in my notes a Plan B. I don't know if you want to talk about them when I talk about my notes.
I was actually kind of anticipating talking about this at Executive Committee Managers Update, but since we're on it, we might as well kind of exhaust it.
So Plan B, 3 years ago, we had Bullduck work release people come. And this is a pretty big undertaking. It's a little more than a couple hours of work. It worked very well that time that we did it. Part of why we literally have to do it. We don't have a choice. This is going to come when we have our DEP inspection, which is kind of looming out there. We're also now getting really pressed for time to do it while the growth is low, so that we can get to the trash. Also, when we did it 3 years ago, ticks were a problem. We all know ticks since 3 years ago have become an extreme problem. I actually have somebody coming in tomorrow to quote us to be able to spray for ticks on the back side of the landfill and in the area, TikTok.
Let's definitely talk about
And
toxicity and.
there is not, I already asked. Technically, it's a very good mix. It's not toxic. If we get a length of time where we can spray, and he has a good day, he can spray, within a day or two, it isn't an issue.
Let's just run that by the DEP, because one of the prime things was,
By him, and he's
We've
assured me.
We've used them at the school in Lincoln.
Yeah, he.
I know, it's pretty
he gets more
controversial.
him than-
We use them at our house too. He's-
And so I did ask
Yeah,
that question
but-
up front, because also with weather and so on. So tomorrow I can get a little more information about that, but, maybe get a MSD sheet or whatever, and we'll
Yeah.
go from there. But it really, to me, it's the worst of two evils. We really cannot ask, and I would not ask any of you to go out there. It's
I
very
go out there all
bad.
the time when, if you just, seriously,
No.
you just put bug spray on, I go out there all the time, nothing ever happens to me. It's like people don't want to use bug spray anymore because they think DEET is bad, but it's not. I do think the town of Camden has a policy about what can be sprayed and what can't, so, and that's a big area.
Paul is well-versed on it, because he does it
Well,
everywhere.
I thought it was worth, he's very willing to come and speak with us. He's
But
very
different
willing to
places have
give us a
different policies,
quote.
and if we just say, you
And-
can spray whatever on ours,
The only
We have
other
to tell
cost
them.
would be paying, we do pay the work release people if they come. Last time we had two gentlemen, and I think we had three for a few days, but they couldn't come the whole time, so we have two or three that come. The only other big expense is transportation, where we have to, we either pay Schooner Bay or somebody to pick them up, and I'm not sure whether they have other ability now to do it when they didn't back then.
I'll go pick them up on Friday.
There's a way to work that. I've actually been approved to pick up there too before, but, so that's a question we can work on. And then they usually bring a lunch and we give them a little extra. And so it works out it was a very nicely organized and run program the last time that we did it. And we have not done it since then. So it's 3 years of
3 years?
trash accumulation blowing off our
I think
facility.
it's a good idea. I don't mind going out and doing some time, but I mean, right now, we've got meetings like crazy. Like next
Yeah.
week, we've got meetings 4 nights out of 5. I mean, and this week, it's been pretty much the same thing. So, I don't mind doing it, but I think that is a good alternative.
Better trying to get us all together at a
Yeah,
time.
exactly,
and I think that's
exactly. I
a good
think
way to
this,
do it.
and especially if it's time sensitive,
Right.
and you get it before the growth.
And there could be a future thing where we look at fencing, maybe some temp set fencing. We've been talking about along the quarry where we have the guardrail, so it doesn't blow in the quarry. We're looking at some of that too. So there may be something we can do to look at preventing so much from going into the foresty type areas out there. But
So
it's been quite a while since we've done it.
So we'll try to put something together in the not-too-distant future. We will extend the invitation, knowing full well that you all have big boy and big girl jobs and other responsibilities that may fall outside of that. If you can join us for it, that would be great.
But in the meantime, we're going to work on getting the work release, guys.
Oh, that's what yes. And I would encourage, if it works out right, I've done a couple of projects with folks from the work farm. They are great folks to hang out with. I've thoroughly enjoyed all the work that I've done with them. Ben Beal at the work
Marcy's like
farm's
the
been
champion
great.
of that, too.
Oh, they're awesome. They
Right.
really are awesome.
And
The group that Marcy used to
Yeah.
get us to do. the
I've worked with them on the Riverwalk when we did Riverwalk and Camden Extension. Great folks to have good chats with, actually.
the hardest part is for them to get boots, to have the right equipment. They have to bring their own. So that was one of the other harder parts. But also, just as a small aside, I emailed you about the we have planters out front.
Yes, good
That
job.
we have spent quite a bit of money every year on. And I thought that part of the diversion of funds from there, that we're actually using Rockport Garden Club this year. They've approved us to help us with that, and then the staff and whatever will also help during the season. But people, we really enjoy them. People wait in line, and we didn't want to really lose them, but I cut it way down for the costs, and I thought that money for landscaping could also help to defer some of the costs for the Bull Duck program. So we'll look at that.
The Rockport Garden Club is going to charge us?
The Rockwood Garden Club has already done their budget, and we would have to do supplies.
Oh,
Also, I made.
that's it?
Yes, yeah, I said I took like a third of what we had and did it.
Because part of the problem was it was never actually, well, the major problem, as I saw it, was it was never actually allocated in the budget.
There is landscaping.
It was under the land, it was like landfill maintenance. And so,
No, we found it under landscaping.
which was supposed to be, I think, things like mowing. And,
Right.
in
Yeah.
Camden, none of the town public works budget funds the flower boxes and stuff like that.
Let's make
So-
sure to do a mental note on that, and when we set the next budget, we will review that and see if there's a more appropriate place to put it.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
Any further discussion on that?
So we are going to spend money on the flowers. I think that's.
Yes, but I think we're saving money on it.
Cost of the flowers,
Yep.
so.
We're going to save significant amounts of money on it.
$1,700 last year, and it was,
It's not going to be this year.
this is like I guess this is a conversation for another. I don't think we should be spending any money on it.
No flowers?
I think we should probably get somebody to do it for free, but it's not a big enough issue it's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I do believe it's something that's not really in the budget. Because when we approved the budget and it said all the things like landfill care, and then underneath that is mowing, and I don't think any of us were like, oh, and that includes our decorative flower budget too. To me, it came as a surprise when I was signing off on warrants, and it's like, well, we've always done this, and we just stick it here because it's,
Well, it's been
I
a big
felt a
pet
little
peeve of
bit-
mine since I got there, so.
But you're saying it's
I
gonna
can't
be-
say that I supported it as it was being done.
right, you're the one that said, right.
However, you suggested I contact the Rockport Garden Club, which I did, and it's late in the season, so they've made an accommodation. They will be providing all the people all season, and it will be a nice community network, so, and they've been very responsive, and as I said, I think our staff will help a lot more too this year, but, I mean, we've cut it down, way down.
No, and thank you for doing that, because it was one of those things that needed to be dealt with, and we all
Landscaping,
forgot.
it would be a good thing to bring up, that we're cutting a lot of that out, and we'll have a little bit more money in that landscaping area to work on this other project, which is required.
Yeah, I'm just objecting to the fact that it was ever really actually
Right.
in there, but I think you did the right thing. It's,
All right, so any further discussion on that? Great, all right. Item F is scrap dog community compost. There was some question on whether or not Davis was going to give an update, so we will.
I have one.
Oh, you do?
He's not here.
Yeah, he's not here. He couldn't make the meeting, but we talked about the sale of compost that will go back to people in the pilot program, and it will be held at the facility. He is shooting for May 25th, which is the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, but he felt like a lot of people who are around and doing things will probably be doing their gardens, and the price, he's going to bring about 8 to 10 yards of compost to the facility. We're going to put it between the odor control building and the blue metal building on the left-hand side, just before the swap shop, and let it set up there. And he is charging $50 a yard, so he expects at least maybe 8 to 10 people to come in and take advantage of the program.
And what's our cut?
He didn't, I didn't ask him that. I didn't reread the contract, but I do know that that will be the charge to the pilot program people if they come and ask for a yard. They can take a yard, if up to a yard. So, and he's only going to hold it from 1 to 3. So it's not like a huge all-day event. It's a couple of hours, and hopefully it'll all move out. We're going to place some signage right where everyone who participates in the program drops it off. So we'll put it right there behind it where those people who are participating will have a good month's notice that this is going to happen. And I think Davis said he would put a contact on that sign as well, so that anyone that it was very inconvenient for them, they could check back with him to get a delivery on another day.
So I'll be the unpopular guy and say, because this is all awesome, it's all great, but we're paying him to haul our stuff off, and then we're letting him come on and sell stuff, so he's getting money on both ends. That's the only kind of rub, and so.
Doing that, we asked him to.
Yeah, I remember
Deferment of cost, so I think we do get something back.
we, in theory, yes, in theory, and again, I think it's a great program. I've always been not skeptical of how much he would receive in compostable items. My skepticism was on what was actually removed from the waste stream itself. Is what he has collected as tonnage actually been reduced from our yellow bags? And that's a really difficult thing to actually
That's what we're doing for a whole year.
put into numbers. I think the program's great. Just throwing it out there for discussion purposes. If I'm in the minority, no big deal. But we're paying to have him haul something. He takes it and turns it to something else that he then comes and sells at our facility for a profit.
This was the agreement, right?
Contract. This is not the
So
time to
here's
talk
the
about it.
thing.
Yeah, it's not that, that's where I was getting to. This is a part of
Contract,
an
let's just
agreement.
review it, and if you want to change it next time, then.
So here's the thing. This has been brought before this board by yours truly. I'm not going to sit here and beat this to death again. Move it on.
Okay.
We have only spent $50 this year.
It does not matter. I do not want to vet this again.
Okay.
All right? I was pretty straightforward, and you better move it on. That's all I got to say.
Any further discussion?
What the hell?
All right. Item G, which is Governance Committee update. We apologize that we took your time today,
You took our
and we
time
very
for an
much
executive
appreciate
session,
it.
so there is no update, other than you took our time. Thank you very much.
We hope our future managers can be very good at governance, and that the work of the governance committee will soon be supported by the manager.
Vacation anyway.
And I will get you contracts, I saw in the minutes. I thought I only had to get you policy, but I owe you contracts as
Oh,
well.
okay.
That's
Yes.
actually finance, which is,
Oh, that's right, that's
Okay.
finance,
Another-
but which, yeah, you're supposed
You
to,
did.
yeah, contracts to the finance committee, and you did put together the policies, which you're gonna be
Yep.
scanning for us tomorrow, as I understand.
Yes.
For governance. Great, okay, that's it. Short and sweet.
Great. Item H, any further discussion? No. Item H, Finance Committee update. You do have a kind of bullet point to follow?
yes, which is the first thing on the bullet points?
Outcome of funding motion for member municipalities on the Municipal Review Committee fund commitment.
Oh, well, I did not have great success with people getting back to me with motions that their towns had made.
We did ours.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Yeah, you're supposed to
We did.
send
I'd
a
already
copy
done
of the
it.
minutes to her.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have the minutes yet.
That's the part that
Right,
didn't have
because
it.
it was the
But
last-
the other,
last meeting.
it's almost,
We did ours.
actually should have been the reverse order, because the reason that we're doing that, and Lincolnville is the star of all of this, because you've.
You got that, right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
David is
all right.
like dealt with months ago, I mean, it's.
We did
It's
too.
almost, no.
Yes, we did.
No.
And I'm not going to argue
You
with you.
and Camden.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We did it again.
We did it
We
again.
did it, or we did it again.
It's really for
However
the
you want
audit, so I should have done the audit report update first.
And I
because-
disagree with the auditor on that, but, but we did it
You
again.
guys
Doesn't
actually
matter, we
agree.
did it.
Again.
We did it, or we did it again.
And honestly, I don't think the auditor really cares, because this is all for the auditor. Well,
Right.
we can argue about the reasons for doing things. Lincolnville really did quite an exemplary job, I would say. It was almost like, when I included in the report of all the different things that the towns did, it was almost like, oh, by including what Lincolnville did, is that going to reveal weaknesses in what other people? But it really doesn't matter. Ultimately, the for the purposes of the audit, what needed to be shown is that the liability, first of all, of the future closure and ongoing costs of the landfill lies with, first and foremost, the municipalities because of the interlocal agreements. So it's a concern that is something that should go back to each of our towns in making sure that the audit in our towns reflects that, because each town does need to keep track of the fact that all this money is owed. It should be accounted for at Midcoast Solid Waste too, but it's a little bit of a shared liability, but Midcoast Solid Waste could completely crash and burn, and that liability for the towns would still be there. It wouldn't be okay for Camden to say, well, we thought Midcoast Solid Waste was taking care of it. So that's what the auditors responded to me today, that yes, he agrees with all that. They're going to fix the language, and there's nothing else that they need from us. I also sent, I hadn't sent that Rockport did that motion, but it wasn't, when I sent him the 2017 town meetings that Lincolnville, Camden, and Rockport did, that satisfied him, plus the fact the burden for him didn't appear to be all that high, because this is what Lincolnville did. I didn't actually send anything about what Hope did, because nobody sent me anything, but I assume that you do have it in a restricted fund, and I was going to reach out to Sam and get the exact, if it's easier if somebody could just send that, and I could send it along, but he didn't say, well, I don't have Hope's
I thought
part
she
of it.
did. She was at the meeting, but, yeah, we just put it in the reserve account, so.
So it looks like that's all fine. The new draft of the audit is not going to reflect that Midcoast Solid Waste is in a $2 million loss. So moving forward, in Camden, I do think that we will put it on our town meeting warrant, the motion that we made, that we passed at the select board level. To do it really properly, I do think should go to town meeting, because select board is, that can change with the wind. So I think actually the way that Lincolnville, the language that Lincolnville sent of how they did it, they required, they're allowing their select board to transfer the money to Midcoast Solid Waste after holding a public hearing. I thought it was very well worded and well done, and it makes a lot of sense to say, okay, so we're going to give the select board that power. All we want is to just make sure that they're going to tell everybody. That will give it, the added level of, okay, that the public would have the opportunity to say, hey, you guys forgot this, or I think it was a pretty perfect.
I think our thing was boards change.
Right.
And we didn't want another board to say, well, we'll do this with that, when we all know where it really needs to be.
Right, and that's the process that we outlined with the put option.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to just follow that. That's what we always said we were going to do, was follow that same process of putting it out to town meeting for this bigger installment of money. But then when we all decided, I don't know what we want to do with it, we're like, oh, we don't have anything to put out to town meeting necessarily. And that's when we stopped in Camden and just didn't put anything out. But in Lincolnville, I think you guys did it better, because you said, okay, we're still going to put something out. We're just going to say that the select board, you made it clear that it's restricted for that purpose, and that the select board could transfer it after holding a public hearing. So I think that's probably the exact model that we'll use in Camden, if that's something.
This June?
We had talked about that with Audra before she left, and I think we do still have time to do it.
We can. We-
not for obviously a ballot vote, but for open
No,
floor.
for
yeah.
open floor, yeah, it can't be ballot, ballot's closed.
Right, so, yeah, it could be on the open floor.
And if you want, I can just forward that from David Kinney, what he sent me, if you want to see the exact language that
Go ahead.
We
was
used the
used.
language that was presented by this organization's council when we put
Yes,
it
you
in.
did it exactly what Camden did, and you did it at the 2017
Right.
town meeting, which
Which was for the.
which was the
former.
first round of money.
For the put option and the second piece. We had two articles in there.
The put option, one of them allowed the select board to exercise the put option. Then the second article was about the money coming back from the put option. That language could be construed to say, at the time, the meaning of it was allowing the transfer of the money that had come back or that would come back from the put option. It was not intended to allow for the transfer of all of the subsequent money. But when Ron is reading that, because I looked at old newspaper articles too, just to see when he's reading that, it could be construed, because it doesn't say only the put option money. It says the money coming back from, as part of the separation with PERC. So you could take that article and say, you know what, actually, that gave us authority to do it with all the rest of the money. I think it's
That was the intent.
it wasn't I can tell you what, I can show you what all
We weren't
the,
sitting on this board at that time.
I was at all the town meetings,
A sage once told me, many times, belt and suspenders.
it wasn't, this
what
was
we
the
just
whole
did.
point, was it was going to lay the foundation. We were going to say, we're going to ask for the ability to transfer that first round of money, because it was less. It was, I can remember everybody saying it. It was less money, and it was going to lay the foundation to later come back and hope that the towns would say yes to the bigger amount of money also.
But you
As we s-
floor vote.
It doesn't,
You can get it on a
But
floor
as
vote.
we
Matter
said
that
at the
much.
Finance Committee meeting, it's up to the towns what they put on their agendas. So
Totally.
I think we put it out there, and so every town can decide how they're going to.
exactly, yes, so
We
it's
don't need
more,
to beat it to
Rick and I
death
can
here.
argue on our own time.
Right.
Right.
I'm waiting
Exactly.
for Mike, he got this agenda item, I used the bathroom. Do you want me to take over again?
So that's the end, there's no vote is necessary, that's the end of the report.
And so,
So hopefully we'll actually have the new language by, the next board meeting.
are we in the third bullet for the Finance
Oh,
Committee?
shoot,
now?
is there a third bullet?
Yes, that is
Whitson and
the
Drummond.
Whitson Drummond.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, yes, go, take it away, Deb.
And this is the, okay, so, I don't know, I'm not sure why it says corporate designation, but anyway, so this board had authorized the Finance Committee to contact
Yes.
Greg I'm at Woodsum, and for expend no more than $3,000 in having them hopefully be our counsel to help advise on the investments that we can do with Camden National Wealth Management. I did that in consultation with Allison. I contacted Greg. He responded to me and is happy to do it. You know, I think that he will certainly come in within that budget, underneath that budget. And the only thing is that Camden National Wealth Management is also his client. And so we discussed it lawyer to lawyer. We are very confident that it's a waivable conflict of interest because Camden and we are on the same side here. We want to, invest Midcoast solid waste funds legally and appropriately. And so we just had to sign a waiver, if that's okay with you, but I would feel more comfortable if the board, and then we'll have a retention through, for Owen to sign as president. He sent me a letter. As chairman of the board, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
He sent me a letter for me to sign, but we're going to have him do it for Owen to sign. And so
Any objections to that?
if anybody has any objection to that, otherwise, if you have any questions about the waiver of the conflict, or if you have any concerns about it, let me know. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if we would just, for good governance, make a motion and vote on waiving of that conflict. Is that okay?
What do you, yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that. What's the terminology of do you need for a motion?
Well, I can make it if you guys want. So I would move that we retain Greg on from Woodson and Drummond to advise us on investments with Camden National Wealth Management, as we previously said, not to exceed $3,000, and that in that process, we also agree to waive any conflict that the firm has by their representation also of Camden National Wealth Management.
It is,
It's Drummond Woodson.
Yeah, you're right.
But
Oh, is it Drummond with?
Yeah.
Oh, I was
The
just
minute-
looking at what it says.
This says it right.
Drummond.
You're-
Yeah.
This says it backwards.
Second.
Okay. Second?
And then for discussion purposes, we put corporate designation because that seemed to be the primary inquiry of what are we defined as, because it dictates how.
Oh, I see,
That's
I
why
see,
we
corporate
put-
designation, I see, yes, that's right,
Figuring out
yes.
exactly what we are classified as, so.
Yes, exactly, that's
Who are we?
really what the essence of his charge is. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great, it's unanimous. All right, moving on to item I, discuss dredge spoils. Beth, in lieu of Audrey, who had kind of been primary contact with these folks, Beth has taken over that while Audrey's been out. So Beth,
I followed up with Jason at London Morse and let him know that with Audra away, if he had any further questions to see if the dredge spoils were going to still come into the facility, he basically wrote back and said that he does not have an intention of bringing the dredge spoils to us at this time. He felt it was cost prohibitive. I just responded that if he should change his mind, I want to work with it. It would require additional testing, and we could talk further. And that's how we left it. So at this time, that product is not coming in.
So is this the result of a dredging? This is the matter that's dredged, that they would have to dispose of? Okay.
Yes, what they would pull out of the harbor.
Are they still doing that project?
I have no idea. And I think
So I'm sure they are.
season is moving on.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking they have a certain time, and I haven't seen anything, activity, so I'm just wondering if they.
Right.
here was because I tried to come up to speed slightly on this. One, the big thing I wanted to know is, are we, the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation, somehow holding them up? And the answer is consistently no. We are not holding them up at all. And the other thing that I don't have any good reason to say this really, but it would not surprise me if in a little bit they come back after they poked around a little bit and said, hey, it's actually pay you all more than we thought, or pay them over there more than we were going to pay you over here. I'm not sure if they researched the disposal.
They can probably do land disposal some.
Dredge is the head of the harbor, right?
Some portion of your harbor.
Well, they got a problem there, because that crane that's in there and barge for the American Boathouse
Yeah.
is still there, was supposed to be out on April 1st. So they're backing up into their season, so that may be part of the reason why.
They were supposed to do this all in March, though, it says in their applications.
Right.
And I don't want to, because it's getting a little bit on, I don't want to discuss this too much, but to finalize this one, is it still the opinion of the board? We made a formal motion last time, but just to, that as long as our costs are covered, we make the profit that we are due, that if they come back and say, hey, turns out we shouldn't have said, no, not at this time, you all are the cheapest route there, we are still going along the lines
No
that,
reason to reconsider
Yeah.
that move.
As long as the DEP signs off
Audra
on it.
even give them any numbers?
that's when they turned around and went, oh, we didn't calculate for that.
Oh, okay.
That's when they kind of paused, but at the same time, a lot of their testing that they got to do regardless of where they take it, they haven't done yet.
Absolutely.
That's where we're not holding them up.
Test that.
No, they got to do their
They have
testing
done it.
themselves.
They have done it, you can see it all in the.
Yeah, but they have done one
They've
level
done a
of
test.
testing, but they
It's been
haven't
reviewed.
done the other mix-up test.
Which is where it
They
was
need
last
a,
time.
right,
Yep.
they need a.
All right, so we did.
I also want to
oh,
add that we
Please, go
may,
ahead.
there is, if they do bring it to us, there may be a value to us, so we might want to readdress that at some point, if it does come back, was my last point,
No, it would be good.
to determine final costs.
if it comes out 2 days after a meeting, considering the scope of this project, we may try to bring everyone in if the request is, can you give us a discount on it? But that's bridges to cross at other points in time. All right, we discussed the automation for the B4 well. Item K, consider contracted service for annual testing report requirements.
Okay. So when we got,
See anything for that in the packet?
yeah, we really, it's just, it was, at the time that we were setting the agenda, there was a question about whether or not we might need to hire an attorney. I don't think that we do right now. What happened was we got our final review back for our 2017 annual report, and in that report, it was suggested that we begin testing our leachate this year for PFAS, which is, I think you've all been reading the headlines. I wish Dave Bolsters was still here. The Maine DEP has asked that biosolids and I guess you would call them biosolids that come out of wastewater treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, that they have to test for this PFAS, PFAS. And it's like PCBs or anything else. So somewhere down in, I want to say Kennebunk somewhere, somebody spread the organics that came out of a sewer treatment plants, and it made people sick. So that they've gone on and said, we're going to start looking at that. So when it came up in our report, I just did a little looking around, and initially I was told by our engineer that we probably want to get an opinion on that technically landfills aren't under that, not required to do it at this time. So I followed up, I sent an email out to Lou Pizzuti, who's our representative at the Maine DEP, and I think he sent it around the bend and asked a few people about how that got into our report. And what I got back from the DEP is that even today, I just got something back, a final email that says we are not required to sample and analyze leachate for PFAS at this time. So the department is actively developing a protocol. They'll be looking at that, and whether or not they want to focus on PFAS at landfills or backing up from wastewater treatment plants, as to say, if you're a big commercial user, is it coming from you? That's something they're going to be looking at in the future. But as of right now, we don't have to test. I didn't have anything to provide, like to say that we needed to do it or how to do it or what labs to use. So the idea was that we would ask Pierce Atwood to do that. And I don't feel at this time we do.
Water testing, right?
No, so
just
basically.
They have an opinion on it already.
You mean to fight it? We were thinking about fighting the requirement.
Well, so.
It's not a requirement. It was in our report. So we're going to address it a little bit. I actually networked a little bit with Dave over in Rockland, and we got some verbiage. And as we fill our annual report out, we'll address some of this. I no longer feel we need to get an attorney's opinion at this time because the DEP was so responsive and very helpful. But
So we should just consider it
We don't
closed.
even need to-
It's done, right? It's done.
it's done, but
Closed
it's
for
a
now.
topic that is out
may
there.
come
And I
up
wanted you
again.
to be aware.
Yeah.
Don't even address it in
may
the
come up.
report.
Yeah, I wouldn't address it in
Yeah.
any report or anything.
No, but I do have to address it because it's in our annual, it's in our
But aren't they going to-
response.
So I wanted to take the moment to highlight and thank Beth for her due diligence
Yeah,
in going through
absolutely.
this report, identifying that DEP was asking us to do something they had never required us to do before, and we did not believe we were needing to do this, and maybe got a sense that we were slightly getting singled out to do something that no one else was.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
great.
thank you for identifying
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Yes, we
Got good
discussed.
advice, and as I said, the DEP was also helpful.
And when Beth and I talked, it was poke around, see what you can see, but yes, if it gets to a point where DEP saying, no, you will do this, well, hey, we may need to get a legal opinion on this. Luckily, it didn't get to that point, but
Right.
it will maybe come down the pike at some point.
I mean, we do a lot of leachate testing.
Yes.
So adding one more thing that we have to sample for isn't like a glossy okay, worthy.
It is when you're the only
About a
one asked to
lawsuit.
do it.
It was about
I don't think we
getting an
should get-
opinion on whether or not it was something we were required to do.
It's fine, I just don't, it doesn't sound like it quite rises
Nothing
to
to
the
do with a
board level.
lawsuit.
All right. Item L, Executive Committee Managers Update. I'll go first. My wife watches the meetings. I love you. She said, in addition to what Waste Watch is doing, the local Girl Scout troop will be getting a presentation from Marcy and some folks at Waste Watch about recycling and a video under Waste Watch. So they'll be working with the Girl Scouts about things that the facility does,
Cool.
recycling and all that
Great.
stuff.
So she must have heard all the nice things we said about her earlier, I hope.
She also says that Rockport has an ordinance that prevents spraying for ticks.
Who does?
A pesticide ordinance.
Yes, pesticides, that would
I
be,
don't think that what
Who does-
TikTok
no,
uses is a
No,
pesticide.
it's not.
He
It's
told me
not.
it's
You guys, you really have to.
it depends what they use.
It's not,
find
right,
out.
and it's almost organic. It's not organic because there's one thing that's not, but it's very safe. It's very, you have to find out more about it.
But we
I
just
don't
need to
want-
follow the
I don't
right-
want anybody watching this to think that, the TikTok does
Nope.
pesticides. They don't. They just don't.
Well, they're organic pesticides. Pesticides is a very broad term that,
It's very safe. You need to.
we should have some kind of a policy. It should be documented and not like, that's what they use at my house, so it's fine. There should be a policy
I
that's
agree,
written
and
down.
that's why I said earlier that if you want to check it out and find out what's in it, then we can do that.
I will get more
I just don't
information
want
tomorrow.
publicly to be saying something negative or giving bad information about a very good business in town.
Correct.
That's all.
I'll be calling you a little bit too, McFarland, probably in the fall. Updates, he does a great job. All of a sudden, there's no ticks.
Does he only have one product that he
I
offers?
don't know, I will know more
He has
tomorrow.
He has a range, he primarily uses one though, and it's one that you can roll around in within like 4 hours after it's sprayed, as long as it's not a
unbelievable.
damp
You can
day.
actually put it in a vegetable garden.
We asked
Put
a
it
ton
in
of
a vegetable
questions.
garden.
My kids play, we had dogs, and so we
Dogs,
asked a ton of
it's-
questions before
Marcy, are
we
you
hired
listening?
them.
You already have it at your
My
house.
yard 3 times,
Pays 'em.
three times. 3 times a year.
Updates from me, I just want to say that I really wish that myself and other folks on the committee could be devoting our time to other things of importance, and I really appreciate that you all are giving us the flexibility to focus on the manager's search. The more time I spend at the facility, the more and more it becomes clear we need a good, Beth is doing a knock-up job.
Yes, you are, Beth, thank you.
But Beth needs, we're all getting run down a little bit, and having someone there that's a full-time person that can take these things on will do wonders for us. So, thank you, Beth.
Yeah.
And thank you all for your patience, knowing that there's facilities redevelopment and interlocals and all kinds of things that we should be working on. Getting this person hired and you all not getting on to us about other things is really appreciated. So, seems to also still be good morale at the facility itself. It's difficult it's difficult, but it's going. So anything from you two?
Nope, I got nothing.
Oh, nope, nothing.
We're going to have to circulate some dates for the interviewing process. soon.
Yes, yep.
Soon.
Well, they've got to get through the next round of,
But I think that we could safely start throwing out some dates.
Yeah.
In not next week, but the week following, throwing out some dates to see what general times might work. We'll do our final interview, and then we'll start plugging those people at times which we know the board is available. I don't think we can go wrong trying to schedule some
Right
general
now?
times. No, not right now.
No, just circulate some
Emails to
dates
come out,
quickly.
yeah, shortly.
Don't wait a couple
right,
weeks.
yeah, I don't want to do it right now.
It depends on how intense I think you want the interviews to be, whether we can get a couple in,
We
in the
stacked-
night, or you can.
What we did was, we did all four.
Should we be talking about this right now?
No.
Yeah. I'm not, we did all four back to back to back. We took 15-minute breaks in between, so we had half-hour interviews with 15-minute breaks in between. That seemed to work well as far as getting people in there and not having it be a multi-day event. That's likely what we're anticipating, needing to devote a good 3 hours to it, but kind of in one setting.
I think we might want to have people at the facility and walking around. I mean, I think this is, it's going to depend on the candidates, but that, you know, you might want them to learn a little bit about the facility and say, get a sense for the things that they might suggest, or I don't want to be surprised by hiring somebody and then you take them over to the facility and they're like,
I would say
blow
that
the thing up,
a
or-
good person trying to be the manager is likely watching this meeting, and if those individuals come into the interview with the board and they say, so when I walked through your facility, some of the things that I noticed, that would bode well for that candidate, I would assume.
They can also ask to spend
Sure,
time at the
but
facility.
let's-
I did when I was hired.
Okay,
Let's
so
not-
the point is, let's get some dates
Yep.
circulated.
So.
I just know what you want to allow for time. I think when we did our administrator there, we was like an hour.
Yeah.
So we did a couple one night, and then we did a couple another night.
I do think half an hour was slightly short. However, I didn't feel, though, that I had too many questions that I needed to ask at the end of it. It would have been optimal to spend more time with the individuals.
And that's one thing I think we should do when you make the date, is everybody have some questions they want to ask already, so when you get the chance, it's already there, you know, have a scope of what you want to ask for questions.
And we'll talk after, but I found myself actually altering my questions based on the individual
All gave
itself.
Great
Yeah.
presentations, and that sort of dictated the questions.
There were some reoccurring questions of everyone, but it was great.
Getting the part.
I think so too.
Financials?
They're there.
I had a couple things, just highlights.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Beth, please go.
okay.
You are the manager.
I just wanted to let you know that the bulldozer has been down quite a bit lately, which kind of coincided with our bulldozer operator being out. But we have a hydraulic fan pump problem that it is being ordered. They just determined that today, and it's able to be used, but it's not 100%. So we can use it a little bit, so we're working with it that way. And it will come in, and I believe that's all under warranty. Compactor 2 was fully repaired, the RAM was put in. We did not receive the invoice yet, but we will. That's going to be in the, what did we say, about $8,000 range, yeah.
I'm so happy to see that thing fixed. It wasn't fun with a compactor.
It was hard to be down a full one, yeah. That's part of our our commercial side. Compactor 3 on the residential side, which is the first one on the left when you go over, it was fixed last fall. It's been realigned. They finished that up today. And then we do still have to go forward with number 4. We have budgeted for July for that. The baler had an extensive repair being planned after the compactors got done. It is also having additional problems. I am waiting on a quote, which I hope to have by the end of the week. I've asked her to recombine or relook at that quote, so we have the original one, and then adding on this work, so that it's going to be a single event. So I wanted to see what the whole enchilada was going to cost on that. And basically, we're going to have to tear it down and do this other repair. So now's the time to do the second repair as well, and we kind of have to. It cut right out the other day. We already talked about.
So should the finance committee be like on standby, ready to rapid response, so that you can, like, should we be ready to, is that likely going to be, it's not going to be the same amount of money, so does that have to
No,
come
it's
back?
not. It'll be additional. I'm not sure how much, but that's why I asked her to, I am getting a quote, and I have no idea. She had to find the part.
It's the,
What's basically happened is it's getting worn. It gets a lot of use. And so there's a kind of a platen on the bottom of that, a steel plate, maybe 4x4. And it's kind of buckled and bowed. So that plate might need to come out and be set back in with a new one. It could be, a very small chance, it could just be there's a lot of accumulated chafe and paper in there and stuff that's making it go off. But he really felt like even with that, it may have bent enough that we have to put the plate. So it could be, it just needs a really good cleaning. Well, that's part of why I want to make sure we had a quote before we talked money. But I
Finance committee.
will put it forward to the finance committee when I get information. And, let's see.
Picture of the baler in case anyone wants to see.
The well casing work is continuing, as I told you earlier. We're building up around it and securing it. And we kind of that went down a little bit because we needed the bulldozer to do some of that done. But the ladder is gone, and Davis went up there today and took a reading. We were 3 feet higher than we have been because there's been a lot of rain and snow melt. So we turned that pump up to let it pump a little harder. We talked about the swap shop. We have volunteers. Marcy set up a schedule. We do need some volunteers for that, and we're putting the word out on social media. There's a couple of places, and we briefly talked about possibly moving the swap shop to the metal building. So I think by May, we may look at that a little stronger, because we've quoted, we're getting a quote for adding the electrical there. We've moved it. And it just might work smoother in the long run to change that to a different spot.
Yeah, and for the board's edification, when we had this whole powwow the other weekend, there was discussion about the utilization of the blue building, which can be confusing because we've got 3 blue buildings on site, but it's the blue building closest to
metal
the
building.
swap shop, right by the loading dock,
Metal.
of which is,
It's also, somebody say blue metal building.
yeah, it's the one closest to the swap shop that's not
the
universal waste. It's actually been, in my opinion, an underutilized space. It's a kind of storage of sorts, yet there's enough space in the universal waste building so that those items can go into universal waste, and then that blue building cleared out. That discussion kind of netted a opinion that the ability for the swap shop folks to potentially use the blue building didn't rise to the level of a board approval. So we had conversations in the executive committee. There were really good items brought up that we wanted to just ask questions about to safeguard the corporation for any liabilities. I'm going to be touching base with you on that. David Kinney had some good ideas. So likely what will net in the short term is that the blue building will get cleaned out and potentially host the swap shop's larger bulky items, and that the swap shop, as you know it proper, will do household items, smaller items, kids' books and things of that nature. Potentially in the future, a discussion about moving the swap shop completely into the blue building or some things of that nature will be brought to the board. One other thing that was discussed about the swap shop that is not an actual but may come to the board is so just for other folks' edification, the swap shop has been ignored. And with good reason. We have other things that take up a lot of our time and need prioritization. And as we discussed them, the swap shop, as it was running on autopilot, was okay for the time being. At some point and at an appropriate time, this board does need to discuss some potential options with the swap shop. Do we switch from a all-volunteer, no money exchanged swap shop, or do we potentially walk down the route of leasing that space to an organization that then charges for these items, and that's how they pay their lease? That's not fleshed out yet. There's not someone stepping up to say, I want a lease or any of that stuff. It changes the entire dynamic, and we would likely lose all our volunteers.
Well,
So-
it happens in transfer stations all over the place, and it usually leads to a better result that stays open. But it is, yeah, the board should kind of like mull it over, and so when it eventually comes.
Yep,
it's
so that's
good.
why I'm kind of elaborating
Staff it
on it,
and
so that
charge
you
it.
all, so that everyone
That's
kind of
what I
knows a
wanna
little
do.
bit of the history and where they're at right now.
Please,
What was the other thing I wanted to, damn it, I started writing stuff.
So are you?
No,
still
keep going, I'll
swapping?
remember it.
Okay. Also, just as a.
Oh, ooh.
Go ahead, go.
So the gut dam works well. The gut dam works really well, to the point where the North Quarry is starting to swell up more than it has before.
3 feet.
No big issues right now, but if
Except for the
that
sinking of the
continues to
buildings.
work pretty well, we are going to grab things and bring it into that quarry. And then once it rises to a certain level, we don't have good water control of making that water go someplace else. In my opinion, it hasn't risen to the emergency level yet, but it has risen to the, oh, that's kind of interesting, like, that dam worked well, that, it did what it was supposed to do. It's keeping water segregated, and as more goes into the North Quarry. The good news is, in the event that there is a spillover, that somehow we don't catch it, there's a huge deluge and it spills over, that top strata is good water. That is storm water, that is not a hazard to anyone.
They have not determined whether they will allow us to spill that over as stormwater yet. That's a later decision by the DEP.
I don't know if they can
It's-
stop us from spilling
No,
it
no,
over
this
if
is a
it
big,
keeps.
this is a big discussion, and it's all in the we pay a lot of money every year for a big report that gives us, it will give us the status, and it should, do we have it yet?
Status on,
The hydrogeology?
no, I was told this week, it was supposed to be here last week, I was told this week it might be up to 2 weeks before I get it, and that's part of my annual report, so we're working on it.
So
It's
once we
going
get
into
that,
a
we
review
can
process.
look at
However,
it.
we are up to 113 feet technically now. We've come up 3 feet since we put that piezometer on. We've had a lot of snow, a lot of rain, melting, the
Right, some of this is normal.
both quarries are up, 3 feet, so it's typical, but the thing is when we get to a certain, we actually just got some elevations yesterday from our surveyor to talk about where is the detention pond to the level of the quarry and that sort of thing, and how can water flow. So we are already kind of looking at some of that, to look at, what are some reasonable options, and then where we would go from that. I also had an email from Lou Pizzuti to ask me to keep my eye on that. So we're doing what we normally do, and nicely we had that piezometer put in so we can really see it. So it's a definitely a conversation that's happening right now.
CV and Mahar, I mean, we have a million reports and.
Well,
And we're at that point to where when we did the gut project, we said we can't make any decisions because we got no data on what it did. We're now at that point to where we're able to look at some of this data and look and see what it's doing and start to make some decisions after that.
But it actually saved us.
I
What
would
it
like to
saves
add, if
us,
we're
what
talking
it's
about-
doing to the North Quarry, how we may have to do some investment for water rerouting and all that stuff, but it's doing its job. It's doing what it's
I
supposed
do
to
want to
do.
say was my number one question when we built that wall.
Was-
Where is the infrastructure for the water overflow that we kept talking about?
Sounds
So
like
it's
a-
been something that we
a
pay
topic
attention to.
For sure if it's gonna
Meeting
overflow.
But
under an agenda item
wanna
that's planned
make a
out at a
change.
future meeting.
I agree with you, except that in the month between now and our next meeting, you all should be aware, so if you get an email that, hey, unforeseen, I'm hoping that that's not the case, but at the rate it's rising, go trundle on down there and take a look. It's swollen up.
Yeah, but this is a question for experts, and we have a whole plan in place that's when it gets to this point, then we know this. When it gets to this point, then we know this. And the they will tell us, it's normal for it to rise at this time of year,
normal
and
for the
it will
season.
start to go,
we don't have a plan.
we do, yes, we do have a plan for where we would put the outlet pipe, where we would,
So experts need to come in and take a
Well,
look at it
and that
at
was
some point.
one of my other points is that CV and Mahar, we talked about this a little bit last month. Steve has been on vacation. I don't know who we would bring with him, but we've talked about having him come and maybe spend an afternoon with us, maybe have some questions, maybe executive committee, I don't know what group of people want to meet with him, but have him come to the facility. We probably have a list of
Do a
6
workshop
things
there.
that he needs to chat with us about.
Schedule compliance.
Schedule of
Yeah.
compliance being number one, probably, because we haven't moved that, but we have landfill issues, we have that. You all seem to need a little catch-up on what it is we need to do there. So I thought what would be nice is if he came or sent his personnel that comes, and we talked about things. I also need to enter report issues. Then we can have an opportunity to speak with him. If we plan it so that he could come to the May meeting, it might be more, I'm sure he'd be willing to do that. We also have an operations manual and environmental monitoring that we're going to talk about. So there's like 6 points that we kind of want to touch base, and he's been really helpful and easy to contact, but he was away to try and plan anything for this meeting.
I see a lot of that as an executive committee thing. I know we can't
Yep.
keep putting things on but
Right,
that's a
and then-
manager's job, and to have the board all just trying to workshop, like, we can't have the whole board involved in everything, so
Nope.
I would think that should be tasked to the executive committee, and the executive committee could, invite any board members that want to participate, and then we could do a follow-up report at a board meeting. But the general education of everything, I think it should be split up so that it's not everything that CB Mahar does would be with the full board.
Correct. However, the SOC is with the full board, and that's where we were about 3 months ago.
But that should be a
pulling him in.
recommendation that's worked out with,
Right.
a few.
So at some point, is what I'm saying, at some point, you're probably going to want to talk with him.
But somebody should meet with him before he's meeting with the whole board.
I think I said that. I did.
All right.
So,
Okay, please go ahead.
real quick too, we're working on a return check policy with Jody, because we need to have that in place, I guess, for if we're going to charge any fees, which came up a couple weeks ago. We rarely get one, so, but it's a good idea. Jody nicely informed me we should do that. And then we have some new waste receptacles for the film plastic.
1 second, I
Sorry.
think.
I was going to say, we can have a return check policy, but I mean, what we really need is an internal control policy. We need a full internal control policy for Midcoast Solid Waste, and that's something that I think that
Deb is
between
your person.
governance and finance that we need to develop. And we certainly have good examples from the towns around this room that
We
can
have
start
some
with.
already made through our
Yeah,
being audited.
sure.
We
But,
have quite a few, so.
There's always room for improvement.
yeah, it's not a full internal control policy.
So we also have, we got the new waste receptacles, and they were blowing all over. We had original ones that didn't work, we had second ones that didn't work, we now have a third set.
Film plastic,
So,
film plastic.
Film plastic, yeah, because it's so light that, so actually, Rick Seibel has ordered me a couple of, just like the Camden has, the 55-gallon steel drums, he's got me a couple covers on the way. I actually didn't want him to order them, but it's going to work out fine. You need so many to order, and it'll all work out. But we're going to try and move to that system because it's going to be better. And then, bottom line, Finance Committee maybe, or somebody, we really got to start taking a look at recycling and what it's costing us and what we are no longer earning. I have a little update, but every time I put an order in, the money goes, the price is going down. So recycling is really going down, and that just leads me to one last thought, just to leave with you, that at some, I know we've been through the fee schedule, but there's some suggestions, and
Yeah, we need to.
probably want to look at that before July 1st, so that we can enact it in the new fiscal year, maybe without the exception of the 2 things that go to town, but maybe some of those other fees that are there, and we may want to change some stuff up. But I'm doing a little bit of research on a couple of items. And the only other thing is I tried to reach out to the Northport ladies. I have some emails out there and phone calls, but I didn't get a response, so. But I will let you know if I do. And I think that's it, other than setting a ditch maintenance program, we got to get that done. We have a lot of things to do in the landfill, and that's part of what we'll be working on going forward this next couple weeks.
Finance Committee meeting in the next week or two, and definitely we should look at that. And also just look at the overall budget and where we stand in preparing for any
And I will
budget
tell
shortfalls.
you that we've gotten back money on the MSW as well. I meant to talk about it last month, and we didn't have time. The money that we've been recouping from our vendors on MSW that went under the wire, we have recouped back just about $10,000. In the whole, we'll probably have about $22,000 back, which is half of what we calculated we lost. All of the vendors have paid except for our larger haulers, and they are paying on a monthly basis. And I think we're going to actually go into fiscal year '20 before that is totally paid in full, just because of the way the bills are running. You know what I mean? The monthly charges and looking at the reports. So
It's good
they
that
are.
they're doing it, though.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
That's pretty.
Monthly, they did agree, and it's working out.
Kern, did you have something else?
That's it.
She just answered it. I just wanted to know if they had a general idea of how we were making out with recouping some of that money that was lost. But that was it.
Good job on that, Beth.
You're welcome. I can put something together next month that shows it better if you'd like. I had it last month and I just wanted to verbally at least let you know what's happening.
I'm going to be out of town on business, is what I was saying, from May 5th to 10th. So anyway, just so that you, I guess, anybody knows for these meetings that we're talking about today.
Any questions over the financials? Who wants to go home? Raise your hand.
So cute.
It's early. It's not 10 o'clock yet.
How about the Bruins, huh?
Good.
All right, I'm
Good, right?
Are we done?
I think we ought to
So
take, start all
we're
meetings
operating at about
5:30.
23,000 in the hole.
I move that we adjourn.
We're operating at about 23,000 in the hole.
All in favor?
And a second, any
Aye.
further discussion? All those in favor?
No,
No, I tried to speed talk.
Confusing the way
Jody?
they had some of the stuff was in the negative.
Is it in here someplace, or?
No, it's over in the kitchen.
Okay.
All right, bye, guys.
In case they don't do what you want them to do, hot wax, they'll detail your car.
These chairs.
Oh, sorry.